The day had started like any other for David. The sun had barely risen when his ship, the Voyager, landed on the strange alien world. The planet, called Lyra, was known for its ancient history and mysterious civilizations. David was part of a small human exploration team sent to establish peaceful relations with the various alien species on Lyra. They had spent years planning for this moment, and David had been looking forward to it. As the doors of the ship opened, a gust of warm air filled the cabin. The landscape outside was unlike anything David had ever seen. Towering trees with glowing blue leaves stretched toward the sky, and in the distance, ancient stone buildings rose above the thick green forest. The air smelled of fresh earth and strange flowers. David felt a rush of excitement. This was the moment they had all been waiting for. However, today was not just another ordinary day. Today was the day David would meet the most important alien, leader of Lyra, Princess Zara. The princess was well known throughout the galaxy. She was blind but still held the highest position of power in her people. Her blindness had not stopped her from becoming a wise and respected leader. In fact, her ability to lead with compassion and fairness had made her loved by her people and even feared by her enemies. But there was something about her that made David uneasy. The human diplomats who had met her before said she was intelligent, strong and wise, but they also said there was something mysterious about her demands. David, along with the rest of the team, had been told to prepare for an important meeting with the princess. They were to discuss the future of human-alien relations and explore the possibility of a peaceful alliance. Everyone had prepared their speeches, dressed in their finest uniforms, and rehearsed their lines. David, however, was not as focused on the political side of the mission. He couldn't stop thinking about the princess. How would he react when he met her? What would she be like? When they arrived at the royal palace, David was struck by its grandeur. The palace was a beautiful mix of ancient architecture and futuristic technology. It stood at the edge of a vast, flowing river with crystal-clear water that sparkled under the sun. The air around the palace felt heavier, as if something ancient and powerful was hidden within its walls. As David and his team walked into the palace, they were greeted by Zara's closest advisors. They led the group down long corridors filled with paintings and statues that depicted the history of Lyra. The walls seemed to hum with energy, and David couldn't shake the feeling that he was about to meet someone truly extraordinary. Finally, they reached the throne room. The room was vast, with high ceilings and walls made of polished stone. At the center of the room was a large throne made of shimmering metal, and sitting on it was Princess Zara. She was dressed in elegant robes that flowed around her, with intricate patterns of silver and gold. Her face was peaceful, and her expression seemed calm, almost serene. David took a deep breath and stepped forward, feeling the weight of the moment. He was about to meet a leader unlike any he had ever encountered. As he approached her, he noticed the softness of her features. But there was something else in her gaze. Even though her eyes were closed, he felt as though she could see straight through him. "Welcome, human," Zara said in a voice that was both soft and powerful. "I have been waiting for you." David froze for a moment. There was something strange in her voice, an authority that made him respect her immediately. But there was also an undeniable force behind it, as if she knew more than anyone else in the room. "Your Highness," David said, bowing slightly, "it is an honor to meet you. We come in peace, with hopes of building a strong and lasting relationship between our worlds." Zara nodded. "I know why you are here. You seek to form an alliance. But there is more you must understand, David. This partnership is not just about politics. It is about something much deeper. Something you cannot yet understand." David was taken aback. "What do you mean, Your Highness?" Zara's lips curled into a faint smile, and she leaned forward slightly. "You will soon know. But first, I must ask something of you. David's heart raced. He had not expected this. He had assumed this meeting would be a formal exchange of ideas and intentions, not a personal request. What do you need, Your Highness? He asked, trying to remain calm. Zara's hand reached out, and she lightly touched the edge of the table in front of her. Her fingers gently traced the surface, as though she were feeling for something that was invisible to everyone else. I need a partner, David. Not just anyone. I need someone who understands the weight of leadership, someone who is strong enough to face what is coming. And I need you. David's eyes widened in surprise. You need me? Yes, Zara said, her voice steady. I am blind, but my sight is not what defines me. What matters is my ability to lead my people. But there is a prophecy, David, a prophecy that says I must find a partner, someone who will help me unlock the power that lies within me. Only then will I be able to fulfill my true purpose. David was silent, trying to process what she had just said. The idea of being her partner, her equal, was overwhelming. But there was something in Zara's words, something in her calm demeanor, that made him feel compelled to help her. I will do my best to help you, Your Highness, David said, his voice firm. But I don't understand. Why me? Zara paused for a moment, then smiled. You will understand in time. I cannot explain it fully now, but know this. Our partnership is not just about politics or power. It is something much more. You and I are connected in ways that go beyond what either of us could have imagined. David nodded slowly, feeling a strange sense of responsibility. He had no idea what he had just agreed to, but he knew one thing. His life, and the fate of his people, would never be the same again. The next morning, David couldn't shake the conversation he had with Princess Zara. What did she mean by a partnership? And why had she specifically asked him for help? As he walked through the palace gardens, the questions kept swirling in his mind. The lush plants, with their strange colors and unfamiliar scents, seemed to mock his confusion. He had come to this planet to help establish peace, but now he wasn't sure what role he would play in Zara's plans. The palace was quiet this time of day, with only a few servants moving silently in the background. The morning sun shone through, the tall trees casting long shadows on the ground. David felt the warmth on his face, but it did little to ease the tension in his chest. He had barely slept the night before, his mind racing with thoughts of the princess's words. David, the voice broke through his thoughts, and he turned to see Zara standing at the edge of the garden. She was alone, her elegant form outlined by the golden light of the sun. There was something about her that made her seem more powerful than anyone he had ever met, even though she was blind. She didn't seem lost or helpless. She stood tall, as if the world bent to her will. David swallowed his nervousness and approached her. Your Highness, I wasn't expecting to see you out here so early. Zara smiled, though her eyes remained closed. I often come here to think. The gardens are a quiet place for reflection. She paused for a moment, as if considering something. You've been thinking about what I said yesterday. David nodded, unsure of how to respond. I'm just trying to understand. You said you need a partner, but I don't know what that means. Why me? Zara tilted her head slightly. You are a human, David, and you are part of the first human team to visit Lyra. You are an outsider, someone with a different perspective. That's what makes you valuable to me. You see the world differently than I do, and that is exactly what I need. David blinked in confusion. But why does that matter? I mean, I understand that you're blind, but I don't see how that connects to what you need. Zara stepped closer to him, her presence almost overwhelming. She didn't touch him, but David could feel the weight of her attention on him. Because, she said, her voice calm but firm. "I am not just the ruler of Lyra. I am the last of my line. My family carries a curse, one that was placed on us generations ago. It is a curse of sight, of vision. We are blind, but not in the way you might think." David felt a shiver run down his spine. "A curse?" "Yes," she said, nodding slowly. "A curse that has been passed down from ruler to ruler. The curse prevents us from seeing the truth of our world, the truth of what we can accomplish. The only way it can be broken is by a partnership, a bond with someone who can see beyond what is right in front of them, someone who can see the future." David didn't know what to say. He had heard of many ancient prophecies and curses, but none had ever sounded so personal. "So, you're saying that this curse can only be lifted if we work together. But how?" Zara's face softened slightly. "That is the part I cannot explain, but I know that the prophecy speaks of a human who will help me unlock the power hidden inside me. Together, we will have the ability to break this curse." David looked down at his feet, unsure of how to respond. "I still don't understand why I was chosen. There must be other humans who are more qualified for this than me." Zara smiled again, sensing his doubt. "It is not about qualifications, David. It is about something deeper. The bond we share will be something that neither of us can fully understand. Not yet. But I know it will be strong enough to break the curse." David felt a knot tighten in his stomach. This was a lot to process, and he wasn't sure he was ready for such a responsibility. But there was something in Zara's voice, a quiet certainty that made him feel like this was something he couldn't walk away from. "What do we need to do?" Zara reached out and gently placed her hand on his arm. Though her touch was light, it was firm and reassuring. "We need to trust each other, David. That is the first step. The second is the test, the trial. Once we prove our bond, we will be ready to face the curse." "A trial?" David asked, feeling a sense of dread building inside him. "What kind of trial?" Zara's expression grew serious. "It is an ancient ritual, one that has been used by my people for generations. It will test our connection, our ability to work together as one. Only then will we be able to unlock the power needed to break the curse. But be warned, David, this trial will not be easy. It will test our strength, our will, and our hearts." David looked into her eyes, feeling a strange mixture of fear and determination. He had no idea what he was about to face, but something told him that this partnership with Princess Zara was going to change everything. "I'm ready," David said, his voice steady. Zara nodded, a look of quiet approval crossing her face. "Good. Then let us begin." The day of the trial arrived faster than David had expected. Princess Zara had told him that it would test their bond, but she had said little else. The uncertainty made David nervous. The night before, he lay awake, staring at the unfamiliar ceiling of his quarters. His mind was filled with questions. What exactly would the trial be? How could he possibly pass a test that seemed so mysterious? But now, standing beside Zara in the early morning light, he knew there was no turning back. The trial was part of the prophecy, and if they were going to break the curse that had plagued her family for generations, they had to succeed. Zara stood before him, calm and composed, her face betraying no sign of doubt. The sunlight that filtered through the trees reflected off her robes, casting a soft glow around her. She was every bit the royal leader she was said to be, wise, strong, and unyielding. Yet despite her calm exterior, David could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on both of them. "Are you ready, David?" she asked, her voice steady but with a hint of anticipation. David nodded. "I think so." "Good," Zara said, her lips curling into a faint smile. "Trust me, and trust yourself. That is all that is required. The two of them stood at the edge of a vast field surrounded by ancient trees. The air here felt different, charged, with energy, as if the land itself was waiting for something to happen. The field was empty, except for a few large stones scattered around. Each stone had intricate carvings on it, symbols that David could not understand. The markings were ancient, as old as the princess's family. "This is where the trial will take place," Zara said, turning toward the stones. "We must each pass a series of challenges. The bond between us will determine how well we face each trial." David could feel the tension in the air. "What do we have to do?" Zara's eyes closed for a moment, and she reached out her hand, as if feeling for something invisible. She didn't need to look to know where she was. Her senses were sharp, despite her blindness. "The first challenge is a test of our minds. We must solve a puzzle together." David raised an eyebrow. "A puzzle?" "Yes," Zara replied. "A puzzle that requires both of us to think in harmony. The symbols on the stones are part of it. We must work together to uncover the meaning." David stepped forward, eager to start. He could already tell that this would not be easy. The stones seemed to glow faintly under his touch, and as his fingers traced the carvings, he felt a strange sensation. The markings were not random. They seemed to shift and change, almost as if they were alive. The symbols did not make sense to him, but he could feel their connection to the land around them. Zara stood beside him, her hands resting lightly on one of the stones. "Focus," she said quietly. "We must align our thoughts. The key to this puzzle is unity. Think as one, and the answer will reveal itself." David took a deep breath and closed his eyes. He tried to clear his mind, pushing away the doubts that lingered in the back of his thoughts. He had never been good at puzzles, and the pressure of the moment only made it harder to concentrate. But as he stood there, with Zara's presence, beside him something changed. It was as though their minds were syncing, their thoughts flowing together in a way that was both unfamiliar and comforting. He reached out and touched one of the symbols again, trying to feel its meaning. This time, the carving seemed to respond to his touch, and a faint image formed in his mind. It was the image of a circle, a shape that seemed to represent unity. He opened his eyes and turned to Zara, who nodded slightly. "Now, we must find the circle among the stones," Zara said. "The circle will unlock the next challenge." David stepped back and looked around. He saw that many of the stones had different symbols, but there was one that was different. It was a simple circle, perfectly etched into the stone. It was almost hidden, as though it was waiting for them to find it. "This one," David said, pointing to the stone with the circle. Zara smiled. "You found it. We have passed the first test." David felt a wave of relief wash over him. The first challenge was complete, but he knew there was more to come. He turned to Zara, who seemed unaffected by the trial. She had always been composed, but he couldn't help but wonder how she felt about it all. This trial, this challenge, was not just for him, it was for her too. "What's next?" David asked, his voice steady but filled with curiosity. Zara nodded, turning toward another set of stones further across the field. "The second challenge is a test of strength. We must face our fears. Each of us will be confronted with something that frightens us the most. Only by confronting those fears can we move forward." David's heart raced. A test of strength. A test of fear. He wasn't sure what to expect, but the idea of facing his own fears made him uneasy. What if he couldn't overcome them? What if he wasn't strong enough? As they walked toward the next set of stones, David's thoughts began to swirl. He had never been afraid of physical challenges before, but the thought of facing his inner fears, his doubts, his insecurities, was something else entirely. When they reached the stones, Zara turned to him. "The challenge will begin soon. Are you ready? David took a deep breath. I think so. Zara placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch reassuring. Remember, David, you are not alone. We will face this together. With that, the second challenge began. The ground beneath them trembled, and the air grew colder. David's heart beat faster as the first of his fears appeared before him. David's heart was racing as the ground beneath them trembled. The air grew colder, and the faint rustling of leaves became louder, almost like whispers in the distance. He turned to look at Zara, who was standing beside him with a calm expression on her face, despite the growing tension around them. You're not afraid? David asked, his voice tinged with unease. Zara shook her head slowly. Fear is something we all feel, David. It's how we face it that matters. She reached out and gently took his hand. This trial will test our strength, not just in our bodies, but in our hearts. Trust me. David felt the reassuring grip of her hand and nodded. She was right. He couldn't let his fear control him. The challenge was meant to help them grow, stronger together. But just as he thought he might be ready, something strange happened. A figure appeared before him, tall and shadowed, its features hidden in the mist that had slowly crept over the field. It was a human figure, but its eyes were empty, void of life. It stared directly at David, and he felt an immediate chill run down his spine. The figure stepped forward, its steps slow and deliberate, and David could feel the fear rising inside him. What is this? David whispered, his voice shaky. Zara squeezed his hand tighter, her voice steady. This is your fear. It is taking shape to challenge you. What you see before you is an image of doubt, the part of yourself that tells you you're not good enough. The fear that you might fail. David could feel the weight of those words sinking into his chest. Was this really how he felt? Did he doubt himself so much that this shadow had come to life? He took a step back, but the figure followed, its footsteps heavy on the ground. You're not strong enough, the shadow said, its voice a low, echoing whisper. You're not the right person for this. You don't belong here. David's breath quickened. The figure's words felt like daggers stabbing at his confidence. The fear that had been buried deep inside him now seemed to rise up, wrapping around his heart. But then he felt Zara's hand tighten around his. She was still calm, still focused. This is your trial, David, she said. The fear in front of you is only as real as you allow it to be. You must face it. David took a deep breath. The figure was right about one thing. He was afraid. Afraid that he wasn't the right person to help Zara, that he wasn't strong enough for this task. But now, standing beside Zara, he realized something. He didn't have to do this alone. He was not alone. The figure loomed larger, but David didn't step back. Instead, he stood taller, planting his feet firmly on the ground. I am good enough, he said, his voice steady, though his heart was still racing. I'm here because I believe in what we can do together. I'm not going to let fear stop me. The shadow seemed to flicker, its form wavering like smoke. The words it spoke were no longer as powerful, no longer as sharp. It was losing its grip on him. With one final step, David faced the shadow head-on. I'm not afraid of you anymore, he said, his voice firm. You're just a part of my mind, and I am stronger than you. The shadow shuddered, its form fading like mist in the sunlight, and then it was gone. David stood there for a moment, catching his breath. He turned to Zara, who was watching him with a look of quiet pride in her eyes. You did it, she said softly. You faced your fear. David nodded, still feeling the adrenaline rush in his veins. He had done it. But he knew this was only the first part of the trial. There was more to come. Zara smiled and released his hand. You've shown that you have the strength to face your fears, David. Now it is my turn. David looked at her in confusion. Your turn? What do you mean? Zara closed her eyes, her expression peaceful. The ground began to shake again, but this time, the mist didn't just appear around them. It twisted and formed into something else. From the fog, a new figure emerged. It was a tall, imposing figure, its features still hidden. But this time, David could feel that it wasn't his fear that was being tested. It was Zara's. The figure stepped toward her, and David could see the slight tremor in Zara's hands as she stood still. He realized that Zara's trial was different. It wasn't just about confronting a physical manifestation of fear. It was something deeper. Zara wasn't just facing her doubts. She was facing the very curse that had been placed on her family. "Zara," David said quietly, his voice filled with concern. Zara nodded, but her eyes were still closed. "This is my trial," she whispered. "The curse of my people. It is not just blindness, David. It is the fear that I will never be able to fulfill my purpose, that I will fail as a leader." David took a step closer to her, his heart aching for her. He understood now. This wasn't just a trial of strength or fear. It was about something far more personal. Zara had spent her life carrying the weight of the curse, the fear that she would never be enough. And now, she had to confront that fear directly. "I'm here with you," David said softly, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. "You don't have to face this alone." Zara's lips curved into a faint smile. "Thank you, David. You are my partner in this, and together we will face everything. We will face my fears, my doubts, and the curse itself." The figure before her seemed to shimmer, and slowly its shape began to dissolve. Zara stood tall, her heart steadying as she faced the challenge. She was not alone anymore. Neither of them were. David took a deep breath and smiled at Zara. They had faced the first trial together, and they had passed. He knew that no matter what came next, they could handle it, together. After the trial, the ground was calm again. The mist faded, and the sun's light returned to the field, bringing warmth and clarity. David and Zara stood side by side, both still catching their breath from the intensity of what they had just faced. The air seemed lighter now, as if the weight of fear and doubt had been lifted, at least for a moment. But David knew that the trial wasn't over. There was still something Zara had to confront, something deeper. "Zara, are you all right?" David asked, his voice gentle. Zara turned to face him, a calm expression on her face. "I'm fine. The trial was difficult, but necessary. It's part of what I must face in order to break the curse." David noticed that her voice seemed more distant now, like she was holding something back. There was more to this curse, more to her story than she had shared. He had a feeling that the trials had only scratched the surface of the truth. "Zara," David said carefully, "I know we've been through a lot, but I can't help but feel there's more to the curse. You've mentioned it several times, but you haven't really explained it. What is it? What's really happening to you and your people?" Zara's face softened as she looked at him. There was a sadness in her eyes, a deep sadness that made David's heart ache. "You're right, David. I haven't told you everything. But now I think it's time you knew the full truth." David took a step closer, his curiosity growing. "You can trust me, Zara. Whatever it is, I'll help you." Zara nodded slowly and began to speak, her voice quiet but steady. "The curse that afflicts my family is not just blindness. It goes beyond that. It is a curse of destiny, one that was placed on my ancestors long ago by a power we do not fully understand. We are cursed to never see the full potential of our people, to always be trapped in the shadows of doubt and fear." David listened closely, trying to absorb what Zara was saying. He could tell that this curse was something that had weighed on her family for generations. The curse was created by an ancient force, Zara continued. It was meant to keep my people from achieving their true power. The curse is tied to my bloodline, and it has been passed down through the rulers of Lyra. But it was not just about blindness. It is about the belief that we are destined to fail. That no matter how hard we try, we will never reach our full potential. David felt a wave of empathy for Zara. He could see now that her leadership, her strength, had come at a great personal cost. She had always believed in herself, but the curse had made it so difficult for her to see the truth, that she was capable of so much more. Zara took a deep breath before continuing. For years, I have been trying to find a way to break the curse. The prophecy speaks of a human, someone from outside my world who will help me unlock the power hidden within me. Only then can the curse be broken. David was silent for a moment, trying to process everything she had just said. It was a lot to take in. The weight of what Zara had carried all these years was unimaginable. No wonder she had seemed so determined, so strong in the face of everything. She had never truly had the chance to believe in herself. But, Zara added softly, there is more to the prophecy than just finding a partner. The prophecy says that the one who helps me must also be willing to sacrifice something important. A bond must be formed, but it comes at a cost. David frowned. A sacrifice? What kind of sacrifice? Zara's eyes met his, and for the first time she seemed vulnerable. I do not know what it will be, David. The prophecy does not speak of it clearly, but I fear that the sacrifice could be more than either of us can imagine. David's heart tightened. This journey, this partnership, was already more difficult than he had ever expected. But he couldn't back down now. He had made a promise to Zara, and he wasn't going to let her face this alone. I'm not afraid of sacrifices, David said, his voice firm. Whatever it takes to break this curse, I'm with you. We'll face it together. Zara looked at him with a mix of gratitude and uncertainty. You are truly kind, David. But I fear that what lies ahead may test us in ways we cannot predict. The curse is powerful, and the price may be higher than we are prepared to pay. David placed a hand on her shoulder. We've already faced the hardest challenges. We can do this. Zara smiled faintly, but there was a sadness in her eyes. Thank you, David. You are the first person to truly believe in me. For that, I am grateful. David felt a surge of warmth in his chest. He had come to this planet with no expectations. But now, as he stood beside Zara, he realized how much he had come to care for her. This wasn't just about breaking a curse. This was about helping a leader, a woman who had carried the weight of an entire people on her shoulders, to finally find the freedom she deserved. Whatever the cost, David said again, I'm ready. We'll face it together. You're not alone, Zara. The princess nodded, and for a moment they stood in silence, both knowing that the hardest part of their journey was still ahead. But they were no longer just allies. They were partners in every sense of the word. As they turned to walk toward the next challenge, Zara spoke once more. We are close, David. The next test will be the final one, and after that the curse will either be broken or we will be bound by it forever. David nodded, his resolve stronger than ever. Let's finish this, Zara. Together. The sun was beginning to set over the horizon, casting long shadows across the field. David and Zara stood together, their steps slow but purposeful, as they approached the center of the sacred ground. This was the place where the final trial would take place, the moment that would decide whether the curse on Zara's family would finally be broken. David could feel the weight of the moment pressing on his chest. The past trials had been challenging, but this one felt different. The air around them seemed charged with energy, almost as if the land itself was aware of the importance of what was about to unfold. Zara, as always, appeared calm on the outside, but David could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her hands clenched at her sides. She was ready, but David knew that even the strongest leaders had their fears. He understood now that the curse wasn't just something that affected Zara's family. It was a part of who she was, a part of everything she had ever known. "This is it," David said, breaking the silence. His voice was steady, but inside, his heart was racing. "Are you sure you're ready, Zara?" Zara turned to him, her expression unreadable. "I have to be," she said softly. "This curse has controlled my life for so long. But now, with you by my side, I have a chance to finally break free." David nodded, offering her a reassuring smile. "We've made it this far. We can do this." The ground beneath them suddenly rumbled, and the earth shifted. David stepped back in surprise, instinctively reaching for Zara's hand. The air grew colder, and the sky above them darkened as if a storm was rolling in. But instead of clouds, strange lights began to form in the distance, glowing in patterns that seemed both familiar and alien at the same time. Zara squeezed his hand. "The test begins now." As the lights grew brighter, they coalesced into a single shape, and from that shape, a figure emerged. It was neither human nor alien, but a being of light and shadow, with a form that shifted and moved as if it were made of pure energy. Its eyes, if they could be called eyes, glowed with a piercing intensity, and when it spoke, its voice echoed in both of their minds. "You have come far, David and Zara," the figure said, its voice deep and powerful. "But the final test is not for the faint of heart. You must prove your bond, your commitment, and your willingness to sacrifice everything for the sake of breaking the curse." David stepped forward, trying to steady his nerves. "We're ready. We'll do whatever it takes." The figure's gaze shifted to Zara, and it tilted its head slightly. "Are you sure, Princess Zara? Are you willing to face the true cost of this trial?" Zara didn't hesitate. "I am ready to do whatever it takes to free my people, to free myself." The figure nodded slowly. "Very well. The test is simple. You will each be given a choice. One of you must remain here and sacrifice yourself to complete the trial, while the other will be free to live without the burden of this curse." David's heart sank. "What? You're telling me one of us has to stay here? Forever?" The figure's form flickered but remained steady. "Yes. The one who stays behind will give up everything. Their freedom, their future, and their life as they know it. But only then will the curse be lifted." David's mind raced. The weight of the decision was unbearable. He looked at Zara, who was standing tall and resolute. Her eyes were filled with determination, but there was something else in them too. An understanding of what was at stake. "I won't let you do this alone, Zara," David said, his voice firm. "We face this together." Zara's expression softened, and she placed her hand gently on his arm. "David, you are my partner in this, but I can't ask you to give up your life. You deserve so much more than this. If anyone should make the sacrifice, it should be me." David shook his head. "No, Zara. You've already carried so much. You've done more than anyone could ask. If this is the price, I'll pay it." The figure watched them silently, its glowing form unblinking. "You both show strength, courage, and devotion, but the choice must be made." David could feel his heart pounding in his chest. This was the moment. This was what everything had been building up to. He could feel the curse, the centuries of pain and suffering pressing down on him. And in that moment, he realized something. The curse had never just been about Zara. It was about the bond they had formed, the trust they had built, and the love that had grown between them. They had already faced so much together. "No," David said again, his voice stronger this time. "I won't let you sacrifice yourself. We'll face this together. Whatever it takes." Zara looked at him, her eyes filled with both gratitude and sorrow. But if we don't, we will, David interrupted, squeezing her hand tightly. We will face it together. We will break this curse together. The figure remained silent for a long moment, as if weighing their words. Finally, it spoke again, its voice softer now. You have chosen the path of unity. The curse will not be broken through sacrifice, but through the strength of your partnership. The bond you share has shattered the chains that bound you both. The curse is lifted. The ground rumbled once more, and the air cleared. The lights that had once hovered in the distance faded, and the figure began to dissolve, leaving only a faint glow behind. The sky above them brightened, and the sun shone through the clouds once again. David and Zara stood there, their hands still clasped together as the weight of what had just happened began to sink in. The curse had been broken, not through a single sacrifice, but through their shared strength and unwavering bond. Zara turned to David, her expression a mix of awe and relief. We did it. It's finally over. David smiled, his heart light. We did it. Together. And with that, they walked forward, their journey just beginning, but now free of the curse that had haunted them both.